My name is Grace, and for 15 years, I was married to the kindest, simplest man in the world. Michael Peterson was a traveling sales rep for a mid-level paper company. Our life was modest, filled with quiet evenings, a small house with a garden, and a love that was comfortable and steady. He was often away on business trips, but he always came home to me. When he died in a tragic car accident on one of his trips, my simple, predictable world shattered. After the funeral, I was drowning in grief and a small mountain of debt. We had never been wealthy, and I was preparing to sell our house. That's when the letter arrived. It was from a prestigious law firm I had never heard of. It was addressed to Mrs. Grace Peterson, but it requested my presence at the reading of the will for a Mr. Michael Thorne. I almost threw it away, assuming it was a mistake, but a deep, gnawing curiosity made me call the number at the bottom of the page. The man who answered, a lawyer named Mr. Alistair, was calm and professional. "Yes, Mrs. Peterson," he said. "We are aware that you knew your late husband by a different name. Please, come to our office on Monday. It's a matter of great importance." I walked into that opulent law office feeling like an imposter. Mr. Alistair sat me down and began to explain a life I knew nothing about. My husband, the man I knew as Michael Peterson, the paper salesman, was actually Michael Thorne, the reclusive founder and CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. The kind, simple man I loved had been living a lie. Our entire life together had been a carefully constructed fiction. I sat in stunned silence as the lawyer detailed the estate. The numbers were astronomical, beyond anything I could comprehend. I was the sole beneficiary of his primary trust. But then came the catch. Mr. Alistair cleared his throat and read a clause from the will. "While my wife Grace is to be the primary heir, I have also made separate significant provisions for the care and well-being of my other family." The words hung in the air, cold and sharp. "His other family?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Mr. Alistair looked at me with a pained expression. "Yes," he said, pushing a file across the desk towards me. "It appears your husband had another house, in another state, and in that house lives a woman and her teenage son." The file contained a deed to a sprawling mansion in California and photographs. The woman was beautiful, with long dark hair, and the teenage boy beside her was the spitting image of a young Michael. Her name was Isabella. According to the documents, Michael had been financially supporting them for the last 18 years. I felt the floor drop out from under me for the second time in a month. My husband hadn't just been a secret millionaire, he had a secret family. My grief was instantly consumed by a cold, burning rage. Who was this woman? Was our entire marriage a lie while he lived a double life? I had to know. Against the lawyer's advice, I flew to California the next week. I found the mansion, a stunning glass and steel structure overlooking the ocean. For 2 days, I just watched from a distance, like a private detective in my own life. I saw Isabella and her son. They seemed quiet, reserved. There was a sadness about them that didn't fit the picture of a mistress living a life of luxury. I started digging into Michael Thorne's past. I found old articles about a tech prodigy who had vanished from public life after a family tragedy. The tragedy was the death of his first wife, Isabella's sister. In a boating accident almost 20 years ago, the articles mentioned that Michael had been a suspect, but the case was closed due to lack of evidence. This new information only created more questions. Was Isabella his sister-in-law, who he started a relationship with after his first wife's death? Was he a grieving widower who had built a simple, new life with me to escape a painful past? Or was he something more sinister, a man who had gotten away with murder? The need for truth was overwhelming. I couldn't just watch from the shadows anymore. I had to confront her. I had to know what her role was in the secret life of the man we had both, apparently, loved. One afternoon, my heart pounding, I drove up the long, winding driveway, walked to the front door of the mansion that should have been a symbol of my betrayal, and rang the bell. I needed to look his other woman in the eye and demand answers. The woman who opened the door was Isabella. She looked at me with confusion, not recognition. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice soft. "My name is Grace," I said, my voice shaking. "I was married to Michael." The colour drained from her face, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't the look of a mistress being caught. It was a look of profound, shared grief. "You're the other one," she whispered. "Please, come in." Her story shattered my world for a third and final time. She was not his lover. She was his late wife's sister. After her sister's mysterious death, Michael, consumed by paranoia and fear for their safety, had become the legal guardian of both Isabella and her young son. The other family he was providing for was his family of obligation, a promise he had made to his dying wife. "He was never my lover," Isabella said, tears streaming down her face. "He was my protector. He was hiding us." "Hiding you? From who?" I asked, completely lost. "From the man who killed my sister," she said. "And the man who just killed him." She explained everything. The boating accident was no accident. It was a murder orchestrated by Michael's original business partner, a ruthless man named Julian, who wanted full control of their company. Michael suspected Julian, but could never prove it. So he created a new life as Michael Peterson, a simple salesman, to hide in plain sight. This allowed him to secretly investigate Julian for years, gathering evidence without anyone knowing who he really was. His life with me wasn't a betrayal of his past, it was a shield. His recent car accident happened just 2 days after he had finally found the last piece of evidence he needed to prove Julian's guilt. It was obvious that Julian had found out and silenced him. We sat there in silence, 2 women from 2 different lives, connected by the man who had died trying to protect us both. The inheritance wasn't a source of conflict, it was a weapon Michael had left behind for us. In the months that followed, Isabella and I, using the evidence Michael had gathered and the vast resources of his estate, did what he could not. We hired the best investigators and lawyers in the country. We reopened the investigation into both deaths. Julian was arrested, and the full story of his greed and murderous ambition came to light. My husband had lied to me for 15 years, but his lie was not one of betraying my love, but of protecting it. He had given me a simple, quiet life because his real life was too dangerous to share. I inherited a fortune I never knew existed, but I also inherited a family I never knew I had. Together, Isabella, her son, and I became a new, unconventional family, bound by the legacy of the quiet, brilliant, and impossibly brave man we all loved.